Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast. Join me today is Dr. Jeremy Thompson, all the way from Sydney, Australia, a family physician and author of Understand Your True Identity, Discover the Real You, and Enjoy Healthier Relationships. With a background in both medicine and psychotherapy, Dr. Thompson explores how mental health labels can shape the way we see ourselves. Today, we'll discuss the concept of the diagnosis generation, the difference between having a condition and becoming identified with it, and how understanding our true identity can lead to healthier relationships and personal growth. I love this topic. Welcome, Dr. Jeremy Thompson. So nice to meet you.
Hey, thank you very much, Lino, for having me on your show. And yeah, really appreciate what you're doing and, trying to spread these helpful messages out for everybody.
Absolutely. I when I first started podcasting, I really wasn't sure exactly where the momentum was going to take me. But
Mm,
ultimately, when I look back now that it's been 5.5 years, I can see that ultimately this is exactly where I was hoping to be. And there, by no coincidence, we're both in alignment here, talking about
yeah.
one of my deepest topics, my deepest passions. So, welcome so much, welcome to my show. And it's just really also incredible that you're up so early and the next day at 6 a.m. Thank you so much for being here.
No worries. It's still dark outside. I had to put the alarm on this morning. So anyway,
Wow, that's incredible. So, Dr. Thompson, I'm curious, what inspired you to write this book, Understand Your True Identity?
yeah. Well, I've worked as a family doctor and I've worked in lots of different locations, cities, country towns, all over the place. And when you're a family doctor, you see a wide range of the community. You see your high flyers and your down and out, and there's babies, there's toddlers, school age kids, young adults, there's parents, families, older people. Yeah, so you see all the people in your community, and they come in and see you, and there's full confidentiality. So they'll open their hearts to you and tell them exactly what they're feeling and exactly what's going on, the stresses they're going through, and the symptoms and medical complaints that they're having. So I think you get a really good insight into how people think just generally.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and probably after I'd been working for a while, well, first of all, it kind of blew my mind a bit how much stress and how much anxiety and mental health issues and worries people were having. When you're a medical student, most of your training's quite straight and medical, heart diseases, kidney diseases, you know, cancers and all the medical things. But actually, when you're a family doctor, almost half of it, there's quite a lot of stress and mental health overlay in it. So
Oh yeah.
people come in, it's a bit like a smoke screen of worries and things. And in the middle of it, it might just be a mental health problem that they're actually having, but it might not be. It might be a serious medical condition. So you're trying to sort of sift through all of that and work out exactly what's what and really understand what's going on. But the reason I wrote the book was I kind of noticed in all the different places that I work that it was almost like there's two kind of groups of people that would come in and see you. There's those people who seem to have their lives together and they're kind of cruising through life and they seem to have it under control. They're reasonably happy, and but some problem arises and that's why they've come in and seen me. And I find them quite easy to work with, and we'll come up with an answer their problem, and then they're done. They're out there in the world again. I won't see them for another year or so. I'll still see them over the years. So 10, 20, 30 years will go by, and they'll still see them every now and then. But generally, they're not very needy. They don't need a doctor. They've got resilience, if you like, and they can handle most of life's things. Then there's another group of people, and they actually come in a lot to the doctor. They get a lot more medical complaints and bodily symptoms and stresses, seem to have a lot more relationship issues and just problems in life. And so I wondered, why is it that we've got these kind of different ways that people can be in their life? Why do some people struggle so much, whereas other people seem to have it all together? And so, to cut a long story short, I kind of figure that it's really the most primarily important thing is to have a good sense of an understanding of who you are deep inside. And you've got
Yes.
to like who you are too. You've got to feel good about who you are. And your sense of identity comes from these strengths and qualities that I really think are the cornerstone of who you're born to be, type of thing. And the other group of people that don't have that clear sense of identity, what's kind of happened is in their lives, they've been through various traumas and upsets and issues, and from that they've acquired a lot of negative patterns of thinking. Feelings: I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, no one really likes me, I'm the dumb one, I'm the weird one. These sort of thoughts and ideas, which they're not born with when they come into the world, but they get mixed up in their sense of self as they're growing up. And I don't think anyone's really thinking about this much when you're a young kid going to primary school, and I think in high school you start to think about it. But by then, some people already have this clear sense of self, or they work it out. But other people don't, and they stay feeling mixed up. They're not quite sure if they're mainly based on the good qualities or the bad qualities. Some of them might even identify with their negative patterns of thought, or unhelpful sort of thinking, or bad habits, and they kind of identify as being a bad person, or you know a weird person, or an incapable person, and that's where their sense of identity lies. And so it's no wonder that they really struggle in life. So that's what motivated me to write the book. Well, not just that observation, but also what can people do to sort of clarify and get a better understanding of their identity, so that they can be like those people that are kind of cruising through life more happily. So that was
Wow,
the origins of it.
that's incredible. I'm really glad that you did this so intentionally, and it's really coming from your years of experience and really noticing
Mm,
this pattern.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's right. I think also I was doing hypnosis. So I when I was a family doctor, yeah, I realized I needed to learn a lot more about mental health issues. So yeah, I did stuff with cognitive behavioral therapy, narrative therapy, so all the different kind of therapies. And I did a 2-year hypnosis degree course, and then practiced hypnosis for about 10 years. And I don't know if you've ever done hypnosis yourself,
I have
or
not. No, I haven't. And I was actually fascinated by it and thought about being certified as a hypnotherapist, but I know that it could be a real fine line between what becomes therapeutic and what can cross some boundaries. So I haven't really dove too much into it
yeah.
myself, but I mean, I've taken classes and I've been fascinated by it for sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, but at the end of the day, we've got our outer, quick thinking, conscious minds which can rationalize things quite well, but those deeper parts of your mind that are
Yes.
stubborn, and a lot of deep set beliefs are in
Right.
there, and sometimes your outer mind recognizes that these deeper beliefs are actually unhelpful, and they're all related to that traumatic upbringing, and and you don't want to have it anymore, but it keeps churning away and driving you. So hypnosis is really trying to target the subconscious mind,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and clear out and get rid of problematic thinking patterns from there. So when I was practicing it, to actually undergo hypnosis, it's scary. You've kind of got to give yourself over to the
Right.
therapist, and you've got to hope that they know what they're doing, and they're not going to tinker with your mind
Right.
and muck it up.
Exactly. Right.
So for me, if someone was coming in for it, I would take quite a detailed history, and to try and understand their background, and where these problem areas, whether it was overeating, or a drug problem, or smoking that they wanted to get rid of, or something like that, which is inevitably would be tied to some emotional thing from the past. So to solve the problem, you had to clear out all the problem areas from deep inside their life history. And in doing that, you got quite a good understanding of the person. And I'd say, well, hang on, you want to get rid of this part of you, but so who's the real you then, that you want to keep,
Mhm.
And so by doing that history, taking this whole idea of identity, and hang on, who's the real you versus what are these acquired negative thinking patterns and unhelpful beliefs that you've got. So again, that sort of fitted in with this sense of true identity, and separating out the acquired unhelpful thinking
Mhm.
patterns. And so that all fitted in with it as well. Because my view, and also I used to work in a children's hospital. So, and when I first started working as a family doctor, I had a lot of mums and babies coming in. So I've had thousands of babies and toddlers in my doctor's surgery, and I've
Mhm.
really loved observing them. And now, and some people don't think I'm right on this, but my belief is that humans are born into the world, pure and perfect. They don't actually have any negative thoughts in their head. I'm sure of this, just
Right.
from looking at them and
Oh
observing how
yeah.
they are. Now, people will say, yeah, but kids can be really miserable, or that they fight and they do mean things or whatever. Okay, well, kids will be miserable. This is little babies and toddlers. If they're tired or they're hungry or there's something or they're in pain, there's something wrong. But if there's nothing really wrong, they're actually quite happy and positive, quite energetic, very creative and imaginative, and got a lot of guts and energy, and they'll
Right.
go forward in their lives. So I don't know if you can see my little circle up there. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What that kind of represents your mind, and you can see I've got the smiley faces and the love hearts and a few pluses. So I think a kid when they're born in the world, they're actually free of any negatives. There's no thoughts, for example, oh, I should do this or I should do that, or
Right.
maybe mum
Or I
will like it.
must, right?
Or I must, exactly. There's just this positive stuff. They're beautiful. They don't know what their talents and natural inclinations will be as they grow older, but it's kind of there for them to discover. Um, and so that's how I think everyone is in their core. And I think every person out there in the world, no matter how hard your life is, or what depths of depression you might be, there is a truth there that actually you were born without those bad feelings in you. And there's a core that's full of all sorts of abilities, half of which you probably won't have even discovered yet, but it's there. Does that, I'm not sure if you believe that. Do
Absolutely.
you?
I absolutely believe that because that's the same thing I've seen with children. And that's why children are so incredibly creative and they have infinite possibilities in their mind. And that's why they get along with all races and there's no judgment, there's no prejudice. They just love. And I definitely absolutely believe that that's our core identity is love. And
Yeah, that's
so, what's that?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. And now I got grandkids, and it's beautiful when you see them all in a play school together. And as you say, you've got all these different races and black people, white people, Asians, all the different races. They're all play together. They love each other's company. There's no prejudice. There's no nothing, and
Right.
that's all stuff that we learn. So
Exactly.
unfortunately, these beautiful little kids, they can't just go through life doing whatever they want, because there's rules in their family, there's rules in their society, and they end up getting into trouble. They want to crawl out onto the road, and so they get dragged back in, or whacked every now and then. Things happen, and they start to, unfortunately, often get the wrong idea. Oh, gee, I'm the naughty one. Gee, mum's always yelling at me, but she loves my big sister or my big brother more. They're always fine. They're the good one. I'm the bad one. And so on my little diagram, which started off with all these pluses and happy faces, unfortunately, a few um, minuses and unhappy faces start to merge into that kid's mindset as they're growing up. And sometimes when kids become teenagers, it kind of gets a bit worse. They get into a group of kids who have got a little bit too much negative thinking, or they might get into drugs and alcohol, or maybe they're in a violent gang, or, you know, there's all sorts of things where you kind of can get astray, and people build up sort of quite a lot of negatives in them. And that's what I call the mixed bag concept. And that some people end up by the time they're leaving school, that they actually haven't got that clear sense of identity that's based on their positive qualities. In fact, they've got this mixed sense of self, and that makes life difficult for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, as you're talking about this, and also if I'm getting ahead of myself, please let me know and slow me down.
No, no.
But since we are going to be discussing a diagnosis generation and how people start to identify with that diagnosis more than their identity, is this a result of too many negative signs
It is,
versus? Yeah, go
because
ahead.
what happens is, it might be your friends see some of these negatives in you, and so they
Right.
label you,
Uh-huh.
you're a weirdo. You know, you're crazy. You're oh man, you're stupid or something. So there might be simple labels like that. I mean, it's very common. You know, people just think I'm the dumb one, I'm the stupid one. My sister's the smart one, I'm the dumb one. You know, or a kid who might be a bit ADHD-ish or whatever. They're always kind of getting into trouble. I'm the naughty one. And they often think they're stupid because they can't focus and do as well in their exams or as the other ones or whatever. And then it's not just your friends and society that judge you and give you labels. It's the medical profession as well. So you know, mum brings in their kid with these issues and so forth. Well, they end up getting a diagnosis and a label for those things. And part of the problem is our system, that the system needs these labels for funding. And so the more labels you've got, the better, actually, as far as the parents are concerned. Um, and you know, the labels, well, it could be a ADHD label, for example, or it could be they've got a borderline personality, or you know, if, for example, if they can't manage their emotions too well and they're a bit up and down. There's all sorts of labels, and one thing that I've noticed, and maybe this diagnosis generation, I think it's a true thing. So school kids and young adults, if they're troubled by something that's happening in their mind or whatever, they don't usually go and ask someone like a doctor like myself, or even you know, or a psychologist like you. They tend to just go online very quickly. They look all this stuff up,
Mhm.
and they come up with these labels and diagnoses. So they're diagnosing themselves. Well, you know what it's like being a psychologist. It's not that hard to sort of qualify on the criteria. Most of us could probably give
Oh
ourselves three or
yeah.
four psychiatric labels, you know.
Exactly.
Um, so the problem is that these labels are these negative things that you've actually, they're problematic and you've just acquired them because, you know, life is tough, and many people have been through awful things, and you know, quite bad traumatic things, or their parents are fighting all the time. There's violence in the house, or it's a tense, uncomfortable house. There's not enough love. There's
Mhm.
all sorts of things that generate these kind of unhappy feelings that people have, and it it does get mixed up in your sense of identity. And what is a terrible mistake is when people, they feel their identity is based on that a collection of negative forces that they're in their head under a particular label or diagnosis.
Mhm.
And so I've had people come in and say, well, you know, I'm a BPD. I go, oh, are you? Well, what's a BPD? Borderline personality disorder. I go, no, you're not. You know, yeah, maybe you've got some you know, habits and characteristics that fit with that label, but that's not who you are. You know? But
Right.
and it's easy
Dr.
for me to
Thompson,
say.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just had I'm so sorry, but I have this thought. Have you ever had the experience where a patient is so ingrained with their I'm gonna call it a false identity that
Hmm.
they argue for their limitations?
Yeah, they do, because I think there can be comfort in having that label. Um,
Sure,
a lot
sure.
of people get like it when you have a diagnosis. Look, the interest. So the medical profession, the whole way that we do things. Say, for instance, all the heart conditions, or even that Marcus Wells condition that you copped. Um, with all these medical things, the system works actually quite well. That you have a diagnosis. If it's a cancer, well, exactly what type of cancer it is. Once you know exactly what type it is, there'll be a specific treatment that's known to work really well for that. And so the treatment model to target a particular illness with the general medical profession works well. The system is a good one. And so what they've tried to do is apply that to all the mental health issues and things that happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that well. It works sometimes. So if someone has, say, schizophrenia, or maybe bipolar one disorder,
Mhm.
some things where there are specific medications that definitely do help. It's a good idea, but a lot of it is not so good because it's a bit different. Because if your life is going well, and people get back in touch with their true self and who they really are, then they can flow on in a more positive way, and their natural strengths grow. So the pluses and the happy faces get bigger in their sense of self, and the minuses seem to shrink away. So what they were lumped with a diagnosis and a label before, if they can get their true self going, that seems to just fall away by itself, because it's not really an illness. It's not like a lifelong illness that they've got, like a cancer or anything. It's just that they've gone offline a little bit, and they've got caught up in these bad habits and negative patterns of thinking. And people mature, learn to manage their emotions better, and get a better sense of self, improve their communication, and all these sorts of things. And once they can do that, a lot of those labels and diagnoses slip away. They haven't really got them.
Have you seen the comorbidity of mental health with physical ailments?
Well, everything is kind of connected. Um, there's a spectrum there. There are some illnesses, maybe tonsillitis, or what I think over in America they call it strep throat.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a fairly specific thing. This bacteria strep
Mhm.
loves to attack your tonsils. It gets pretty characteristic symptoms. Penicillin generally works and kills it off.
Mm.
If someone has that, well, there's not, in my mind, not too much of a connection of how someone's traveling mentally in their life. But there's a whole lot of other things. So tummy complaints, stress causes a lot of bodily symptoms, causes muscles to tighten. So a lot of headaches, chest tightness, and it can lead to all sorts of palpitations, funny heart symptoms. There's this Takotsubo's syndrome, which is when someone is faced with a sudden, terrible emotional shock or grief that it actually damages the heart muscle. So it's a psychologically induced kind of medical, physical problem. So the way I see it, there's a big spectrum of it, and
And it's
but
all interconnected.
sometimes it's helpful to separate out, and some people. I had a guy the other day. Actually, turned out he had a lymphoma, so a major medical
Wow.
thing, and he said, I've been feeling unwell, but I've been starting up a new business, and there's been a lot of stress, and I thought it was stress.
Hmm.
So it turned out not to be stress; it was a real medical problem.
Hmm.
Other people think they got a real medical problem, and I'll say, actually, I don't think it is. I think it's more the stress that's creating these symptoms. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, a big part of our job as doctors is to figure out what the relative merits of that illness and diagnosis are, to try and benefit the patient. So,
Dr. Thompson, how do you help a patient identify if their symptoms are, as you just mentioned right now, a true disease or something that's happened psychologically or as a result of all the minus signs from being a child?
uh, as a doctor, are you asking that for me?
Yeah, or as a doctor, right? I mean, how do you help your patient come come into that clarity?
Um, There's actually a lot of experience in it. I think when I was a young doctor, I didn't really know. I wasn't very good at it. And as you get older, you get better. I've seen so many patients with different symptoms that you get better at recognizing things that are probably more stress related than those things. I always think I've got a bit of a knack of sort of smelling a rat in there. So often there's a lot of stress and everything, but there are some specific little symptoms or features which, in my mind, trigger that there's actually something a little bit wrong, something medically wrong. Um, so yeah, but for me, there's the medical illnesses, but I'm mainly interested in people, to be honest. Like
Right.
when people come in and see me as a doctor, there's something that's troubling them, obviously, and I need to solve that. But I'm also interested in them as a person. Hey, how are you going in your life? What's happening for you? Or
Mm.
if when kids come in, I'm always saying, hey, how's it going at school at the moment? Are you having a good year? And hear what they say. And most of the time they say, oh, yeah, I'm having a good year. So I'll say, and what are you enjoying doing at the moment? What are your main interests there? What do you like? What subjects are you good at? Or what do you like doing?
Good.
And
Great.
people come up with all sorts of different answers.
Good.
Half of them just like playing at lunchtime and recess with the other kids. But some of them, like their music or their creative things or whatever. But And, and I ask them, how's your teacher this year? And most of the time they say, oh, I like my teacher. And then about 1 in 5 say, oh, oh, I don't like her, or him. And I go, what is it that you don't like about them? Oh, well, they're always angry and yelling at us. And that's just one little interesting thing. I think people don't like to be yelled at. They don't like to be, spoken loudly to, and they don't like conflict.
Sure.
Everyone wants to sort of be themselves and have a peaceful
Right.
life. And so, yeah, so with all the people that I'm seeing, I'm kind of interested in them as the person. Yeah, sure, they've got these medical illnesses or even psychological
Hmm.
illnesses, if you want to call them that, with the various labels. But to me, there's the real person that's behind all of that. And that's really what you're trying to help, is so that people can have a happy and a good life. And that's why I think it's no good seeing yourself
Right.
as a mixed bag of qualities, as if you're some random collection of
Sure.
either good points or bad points. That it's important to separate that out and get in touch with your true self. And I don't know if you can see these models, but I can elaborate on that when the time is right.
So how can somebody start to get in tune with their true self?
Yeah. Okay. So um, I think people, while as they might feel like they're kind of mixed up like that, they're not really like that.
Hmm.
So if forget about that diagram, I don't know. Can you see this here?
I can see it.
Is
Yes.
the camera right? Yeah. So if a better way to see yourself is that this is your true self, which is full of the positive qualities here, and that um, unfortunately, none of us are perfect. We've all got, you know, bad aspects to our character, or little
Right.
bad habits that we've carried along, and then sometimes we can
Yeah.
slip up. We might get a bit sulky and negative and down, or we might get a bit aggro and a bit nasty and call people names and things like that. But I think it's important to separate it out. You were born into the world with certain natural talents and abilities, and it's an ongoing journey as you discover different things that you like. And the negative forces, better to see them as something you've acquired, like you're carrying them around on your back.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you never really get rid of them altogether, I don't think. But once, it's like going for a hike in the mountains. Once you kind of get used to that pack being on your back, you kind of forget that it's there after a while, and you're going ahead in a positive direction based on what your who your true self is and what it wants to do.
Sure.
You can get to know your true self in three ways. One is looking at your past and reevaluating your life. And sure, there was all these bad things that happened, but what were the good things? It's like I was saying with these kids at school. What were the subjects that you enjoyed, or what did you notice that you actually had a natural inclination towards? And there's a big wide area of things like that. So revisiting your past, that can be an exhaustive thing and a good thing to work through with a psychologist or someone, or even a good friend of yours, or someone that you went to school with, or maybe one of your siblings. Um, but the big thing is looking at your day-to-day life from now on. You can almost forget about the past. Just have that sense of how you're feeling within yourself. So I just think I'll explain to people just in terms of a happy scale. So 10 out of 10's as happy as you could ever imagine being. Zero, you're so low, life's not worth living. And I'll ask people, where are you feeling on that scale at the moment? Well, sometimes people say they're 2 out of 10, sometimes 5 out of 10, sometimes 8 out of 10, or even 9. So it's good to have that sense of where you're feeling. Now, if you were at a 5 out of 10, fairly average, and then suddenly you're doing something or talking to somebody, and then you notice a surge of positive inner energy and you're getting quite excited about what you're doing.
Mhm.
Now you're up at 8, you recognize, gee, I'm actually feeling 8 or 9 out of 10.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting a good feeling here. So when you get those moments, I think it's really important to tap into that and think, okay, there's something here that's right for me. What is it exactly that I'm doing? Um, just as an example, some people might really enjoy playing sport. For example, they say, I got this real high. I was playing sport. So I say, well, what exactly was the vital ingredient that do you think that gave you that energy? Because it's kind of funny. With some people, it's, just I was running and just the feeling of everything flowing and working, and it just gave me this energy. So it was just the physical movement or something. For other people, it's, I was just with my friends and we were all having a good time together. And I just saw how wonderful it was that we were all together having a good time. So there are different little things that I think are a clue, give you clues as to your true self.
Mm-hmm.
There's many aspects of it. That's just one, but there's creative things, there's work interests, there's physical interest, musical. For example, I often think, if you go on the dance floor and there's a band playing or some music or whatever, there's different little rhythms that some that work for me and some that
Sure.
kind of don't.
Yeah,
And the
definitely.
ones that don't work for me work for some might
For
work for
someone
you,
else, right? Right.
and people love different types of music and things, and you kind of get attuned to different things, and I find that quite interesting.
That is
Um,
really interesting.
so as I say, you can as you go through your life, every time you get excited or interested in something, you might be talking with a bunch of people, and they're talking about what they've been doing on their holiday or on the weekend or something, and sometimes people say things, and you think, "Oh my God, that sounds so exciting! What a great idea!" And you think, "Gee, I'd love to do that." And you think, "I wonder what the part of me is that wants to do that and is getting excited about that." Sometimes someone else says what they're doing, and you think, "Oh, why would anyone want to do that? That seems like a pretty uninteresting thing to do." Well, that's their thing, but it's not yours.
Right.
Yeah, I think as you go through life, you get to know this positive side of yourself. If Stop me if I'm going too far, but if you feel down, on the other hand, you were feeling 8 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're actually down at 3 out of 10. Well, there's something wrong, right? You're
Sure.
kind of off track. Then I think it's good to actually be in touch with that. What is my mind saying to me? I think people, and they've acquired this, they've got about 4 or 5 negative little comments that they say to themselves. Oh, there you go. You're a loser. No one really likes you, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
For example, I mean, people have these sort of thoughts in their head, and when they go down, those thoughts get quite strong, and they do come from these negative
Negative.
acquired
Acquired. Yeah.
thinking patterns or ideas or beliefs and feelings. And I think it's worthwhile to have a look at those. Where did they come from? Normally, when you think hard enough, you can. It's almost like, oh yeah, that's my dad's voice. He was saying, you're a loser or something.
Right.
If a kid grows up and someone's saying you're a loser long enough, after a while it gets stuck in your head and you think, yeah, I'm a loser. So
Mm.
even later on in your life, your dad's not there anymore, or your mum or whoever, the teacher, whoever
Yeah,
it
but those
was,
thoughts still continue, huh?
they've gone. The thoughts there, but instead of it being you're a loser, it's I'm a loser.
Mm.
And but so it helps. I like to get people to take a note of these sort of feelings and emotions and write it down and have one column for this is the real me, my true self, and the other one is my negative side.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good for people to kind of journal and write down interesting things. But what I find people tend to do is they just write everything down, and then later on they get all these notes, but it's still a bit of a mess. Uh, Everything's all jumbled up and mixed up together. But I think if you're going to take notes, put it down in 2 columns. One column for the things that you recognise have given you a surge of positive energy, and one column for these negative thoughts and dialogues that you have in your head. Because ultimately that helps you to get a sense of your true self. Your direction in life needs to come from your true self, who you're born to
Oh,
be.
yeah, that's your inner
There's
compass.
and there's no reason why all those negative forces which got into your head from various other people who aren't you, there's no reason why they should be dominating your life.
So what I absolutely love this. I love the diagrams that you drew. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try this myself, by the way. I just absolutely love this. Even though I have a pretty, I feel that I'm self-aware, but I would love to be even more self-aware. But
Mm,
I love what you said as far as maybe a column or journal or maybe even circles, the way that you just showed a circle diagram.
mm.
And in one part of the journal, one part of your paper or your journal or your circle diagram, you can write your true self, and the true self is basically looking at the parts of yourself where you have natural inclination towards, with no stress, with excitement, with joy, with curiosity, and versus another column of all the negative stuff that comes up. And you, almost always these negative things that are come up are not part of our authentic nature. These are the things that have been ingrained in us through growing up, through society, through traumas, whatever it is that built that negative part of ourselves. And in seeing them separate, we could then see who we are authentically. And when we see our authentic true identity, then I'm feeling that you could hopefully choose to do more of those things that excite you more.
Yeah, that's right. And it's amazing if you're being your true, authentic self, as you say. Actually, things flow quite easily.
Oh yeah.
And you can do people do amazing things, and often you say to them, wow, that's amazing, that must have been hard to do that. And people often say, well, actually, it wasn't that hard. It
Right.
just sort of seemed to flow quite easily, because that's what life's like when you're allowing your natural abilities to flow forward without an inhibition from those negative
Mhm.
forces. On the other hand, sometimes people live these lives which are kind of unhappy, and it's a struggle, and it's everything's really difficult. And
Sure.
it makes sense that it's like that too, because why would it? You're living a life that's not true to who you are. There's a lot of people that their dialogues, oh, I should be doing this, or I ought to do that, and I have to do that. A lot of stressed people, like just as an example, you I think our modern world, it's very hard. A lot of women are struggling. They're finding it hard. They're trying to be mums and look after the kids, and they're
Yeah.
trying to have careers, and they feel they ought to develop themselves as an individual and have a career and have
Right.
their own life type of thing. But they also feel, no, but I should be a mother and I should be there for my kids and the family as well. It's asking a hell of a lot of people, and they can get stuck with a lot of these should thoughts and whatever, which I categorize over on this negative side. I don't think they're helpful. Your positive side knows who it is and knows what it wants to do, so it's thinking, oh, it's not that I should do this. What do I want to do? I want to do this. Now, there's different parts in our mind, of course. So, for instance, these mothers, there's a part of them that does want to develop their own career or life, or personal direction. And there's a loving, caring part of them that really wants to look after those kids. Well, there's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. You can't
Mhm.
sort of do everything. And
Right.
so you kind of need to rationalize it. What are the parts of my true self want to do? And it's not that I should do anything. My parents aren't around. I'm a big girl now, or I'm a big boy now. What do I think? What do I want to do? And so in my book, I've got a chapter on the secret of happiness. And I think, uh, uh, and I've asked often asked people, what do you think you need to be happy? Or what was the happiest time of your life? And my take on it is that people are happy when they know they've got a good sense of who they are and they're doing what they want to do. And
Mhm.
some people say, well, aren't you being selfish if you just do what you want to do all
Right.
the time? And I say no, because often what you want to do is nice, caring things for other people. Humans are naturally a caring uh, species, like we've evolved as a kind of tribal species, looking after each other and sticking together and helping each other when someone's down. That's generally what we do.
Right.
And everyone loves to look after their children and their grandchildren and spend time doing this. So, what you want to do is not just what will give you some immediate pleasure, like, going down and lying on the beach or something. It's often, I want to do things to help my kids or help these other people or help coach that footy team or whatever. So, the secret of happiness is knowing all these different parts of you that make up your true self
Hmm.
and doing those things. Thinking about it's not good enough. Hey, it's maybe as an example, you getting up and getting this podcasting thing going.
Hmm.
A lot of people would think about doing that. You know what? I'd always like to do this. And maybe they'd be really good at it. But if you don't actually get up and do it, you won't get that happiness that comes from doing what feels right for you.
Well, how do you begin to motivate or inspire somebody if they let's they have a fear, for instance, let's say that they're a full-time parent and they have their 9 to 5 job and they've always wanted to be a pianist, be a musician, and that's really what truly makes them happy, but they feel that they can't, and they fear that if they were to go towards that one happiness, that they won't be able to make it, they won't be able to sustain themselves or their family. I mean, how does one even begin to shift their life to go to more towards their authentic nature when there's also the stresses of survival?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, as I say, there's a practical reality. There's only so much time. I mean, there'd be a lot of people. I'd be one myself. I spend a fair bit of time doing music now, but I didn't do it when I had younger kids.
Hmm.
And so they'd probably, if you feel a real desire to do something musical, play the piano, um, perhaps you might not be able to do it when you've got these little kids that are really demanding a lot of your time and you're barely paying your bills and you're struggling to survive that. But you know it's something that you want to do. You might get a little keyboard and perhaps have a little tinker around. And then when the time comes when the kids are more under control, you have a little more time, then you make sure you get that going. And that is, in practice, what a lot of people do.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, as I say, there's only a certain amount of time. You can't do everything that you want to do. You
right.
have to work out your priorities and the best way of working it out. But what I think a lot of people do is they waste a lot of time doing things that they feel they should be doing or they ought to be doing. And
Right.
really, when it comes down to it, they actually don't really want to do that. And most of the time, they don't need to do it. They're only doing it because the emotion of that voice is so strong, telling them, "Oh, you have to do it, or else, or else you're a bad person." And
Hmm.
so those sort of things need looking at and examining. And as I say, if say a middle-aged mother is having those sorts of, oh yeah, no, but I have to look after the kids. It's worth examining that. Where does that come from? What beliefs did you grow up with as a little girl in your family? What did you think the role of a mother was? And so often, a little girl might get this idea brainwashed into their head that mothers have got to do everything for their kids, cook all the meals, do all the work. Um, Whereas you can rationalize that and say, hang on, yeah, that might have been okay in my mum's day. I understand that I've got that idea, but what do I think? I'm a big, intelligent woman now. I've been around. I understand how life works. What do I think? And it's when you take control like that of and start changing those things. It does
I,
create a bit of stress and anxiety when you tackle things like that and try and change old patterns of
right.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question about it. It takes a fair bit of courage and determination, but in the end, it's worth it.
Yeah. I love how you said that. So from my understanding, once somebody's able to identify the thoughts that aren't theirs, or where's this thought coming from? Why do I feel like I have to work, 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 take care of the kids, take care of the kids, and I don't have time for me? And when somebody's able to actually sit down and be like, hang on, this is my grandma's voice, my great grandma, or my mother's voice, then they could take control of that and say, well, taking my power back, my encouragement, my own encouragement, my own positivity. Whose voice is this? This is not my voice. Now that I know this isn't my voice, what do I think? What do I think for myself? And what do I think is possible for myself? And when
Yeah, and
somebody
what
starts to,
feels right for me,
yeah, right. And what feels
you know,
right for me? That's a good
yeah,
one. What feels
yeah,
right for me?
yeah,
Because when you finally start to question that, you start to see a different path and you start to see that there's a new possibility, even just by asking yourself that question, what feels right for me?
yeah. That's right.
Because when you're doing
Um,
things that are not right for you, you're going against resistance.
yeah, that's it. The look, I suppose the other thing is, if when people kind of feel mixed up and they haven't really got this sense of identity sorted out, and they feel kind of like a bit of a mixed bag, and they actually they tend to think that that's just how it is. That's how people are. Everyone's a
Yeah.
mix of good and bad sort of characteristics, and you do your best as you get through it. And they see other people in the same way. Um, so it might be two people in a relationship, and they think of their partner as also having good and bad qualities. Or sometimes, when you meet someone new, initially there's some things that you like about them. That it might be, they seem to be quite nice and pleasant, or you both have a similar interest, and so you sort of form a good connection with them. But then it doesn't take long before they do something that annoys you. Maybe they've got an annoying way that they kind of talk down to you a bit, or there's just something about them, and then suddenly you feel bad about that person, or you might put a couple of negatives together and give them a label and go, well, they're that such and such kind
Right.
of person, and so you end it. I think people that have this mixed up sense of self, they actually are more judgmental because people are complex. And if you're seeing someone as a mix of pluses and minuses, it's too complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So anyone who's got a few too many minuses, you think, oh, they're just too difficult. I don't want to have anything to do with them. Sometimes, by the way, the minuses all coalesce together. And I don't know if you can see that little diagram up there, but suddenly people seem like they're just a big black minus. They're the most horrible, awful person in the world. I never want to have anything to do with them.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I think a better way for people to think about themselves is this, what I call this positive centered approach to the way you think about yourself. It's a better way to think about yourself, and
Hmm.
it's also a better way to think about other people. So in a relationship, um, um, so I'm not sure if you can see this diagram here. Rather than having these kind of mixed interactions which bounce between being helpful and unhelpful and happy and unhappy. You know what it's like sometimes with couples. They can be getting on well. Next thing they're fighting, then they're getting on well, then they're fighting, and it's all a bit crazy and all over the place. I get families like that coming in.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
always bitching about each other and
Yeah.
going on, and it's kind of like this, you know. Whereas a better way is you want to be connecting your positive side with another person's positive side. So, in the same way that you can recognize that you've got a
Hmm.
deep underneath everything, a good positive core in there, and you know you're not perfect, and you want to be careful you don't slip over and start acting negatively yourself. But if there's another person that you're seeing and they seem to be something that they're doing that you don't like, or you might feel they're being nasty to you or something like that, so they're dishing out some negativity towards you, well, your positive self needs to stand up for that, and not allow that to happen. But the important thing is you try and reconnect with the positive side to that other person. And the way forward in your communications with people is to not get caught up in negative stuff. But so, for example, say if you're feeling someone's being abusive to you, or they're pressuring you, or they're being nasty to you, you and I think both you and I, we have this idea of kind of spreading love, and why can't we have a happier, more
Sure.
peaceful world where everyone gets on together? Well, I think the reason is because there's too many mixed bags out there that are getting into fights, and they
Oh,
can't
yeah.
seem to find a way to do it. So the way to have better relationships is to separate out in yourself and in the way you see other people, separate out these negative, unpleasant things, connect with their positive side. And you say, hey, just a few minutes ago, we were getting on really well, but now I'm sensing a kind of a real tension in the air. What's
Mhm.
happening for you? Or is there something that's going on that you don't like? So
Mhm.
the way you ask the questions connects through their positive side to find out what's upsetting them. And if you can get them to to express what they're feeling, that helps you to bridge that gap and get things back on keel again.
Back onto the positive side.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like say with communication. So people talk about assertive communication, which
Sure.
is basically telling people what you think and what you feel. Um, Sometimes people are quite aggressive in their communication. They're quite pushy and dominating, and there's a lot of, it's true, there's a lot of workplace bullying, there's a lot of bullying in the schoolyard, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. How do
Yeah.
you handle it when someone is like that towards you and putting a lot of pressure on you? Well, I find a lot of people don't really know how to deal with aggressive communication. Um,
It's
but I think
challenging. It's challenging,
it's a
especially
challenge.
if you can, especially if you've got a lot of empaths and they're really feeling the emotions of the other person. Sometimes people can feel the heart rate go up and they can feel it within themselves as well. So how to actually regulate your own emotions while you're feeling their emotions and stand your ground, as you're saying, or put a boundary up and know that you're still coming from a positive centered approach. That's actually challenging.
Yeah, it is, and I notice myself when if someone attacks me, I can feel myself wanting to slip over to my sort of reactive negative side and attack them back or something, or maybe I'll sulk and go into my shell and think how awful they are and walk away feeling really miserable, you know.
Yeah.
But I think a better way is to sort of bounce it back on them and ask sort of questions. Hey, okay, so it seems like something's upsetting you. What is it that's the issue here? So trying to focus on the problem, but trying to access through their positive side there. So these models for that I've got here, I think they're good models that actually show people what you're trying to do and how you can work around these things in a positive way, rather than just walking away and bearing a grudge against that person and never wanting to see them again.
Right.
I think it's better to try and tackle those things pretty quickly and nip them in the bud,
Oh yeah.
and reframe it to sort of separate it out and get things back more on a more healthy method of communication.
Absolutely love these tips. Thank you so much for your
Mm.
time and your energy here. So we're here with Dr. Jeremy Thompson and talking about his book Understand Your True Identity, Discover the Real You and Enjoy Healthier Relationships. How can our viewers, our watchers and listeners find you or your book?
Yeah, well, they can look up understandyourtrueidentity.com. Over in the States, hopefully they can find the book in a bookstore or ask them to order it in if it's not there. Um, yeah, it's yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff there. So as I say, it comes from a background of seeing all sorts of people. So anyone who's out there, there'll be something in it for everybody. And what we've been talking about today is just kind of the start of it and getting that basics right for how you think about yourself and other people. Originally, when I wrote the book, my original name was Peace in Yourself, Peace in Your Relationships, Peace in the World.
I love that.
Which then people said, Jeremy, you don't know anything about world peace, so you better retract it back. So then I said, okay,
Uh-oh.
peace in yourself, peace in your relationships, peace in your community. Because I think, say in your family, it's no good if there's five people in your family and everyone feels a little mixed up and they're all bitching and fighting. You have an unhappy family. It's better to for each person in the families, they're all different individuals. They've all got a positive side,
Mhm.
and everyone needs to help each other. And when someone does something wrong, um, rather than getting angry at them or rousing on them or trying to punish them, better off trying to understand what was behind that. Why did that actually happen, and try and help each other. So, for example, so it's like spreading this whole way of thinking about things, or into your teams, or your organizations, or your workplace. You can have a good workplace where everyone does help each other. And
Mhm.
even though there's difficulties and things that go wrong, you try and help each other and help each individual to bring out their talents and bring them in there. So, and that's how you have a good workplace or a really good team. It could be a football team or something like that. Sometimes a new coach comes in, and
Yeah.
essentially this is what they do. They get everyone to bring out their talents and put people in the right positions and have everyone with this positive thing. And then there's a huge surge of positive energy where everyone, even people that seem to be fairly ordinary players, have some little talent that then can express itself. So that's that's
I
what
love that.
I'm trying to do with this, and it's practical. It's not sort of it's not outlandishly difficult psychology that I'm doing. It's
Right.
not very complicated. So it
Absolutely
is.
love this. I mean,
Yeah,
in a nutshell, bringing out the best in the individual, bringing out the best in yourself, and also bringing out the best in others.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I feel from this, which is amazing, right? And then and doing that in all areas of your life, whether it's work, whether it's personal, whether it's relationships, whether it's with your friends, wherever it is, bring out the best in yourself and bring out the best in others.
Yeah, and wherever you go in the world, and people do weird things, but it's always interesting when you ask, what's behind it. How is it that you think that? And so, yeah, I think it doesn't matter who you meet or where you go in the world. People are good at heart. Sometimes they're living their life. They've gone off track a little bit for various reasons, but there's always a good person in there behind it. And the
Always.
way forward with everything
Yeah.
for all of us is to sort of try and be helpful and be our best self, and not to try and go out there and change other people, because that's their responsibility, but try and be a good person yourself, and hope that it rubs off on some other people as you do it.
And it will, because there's a
Mm.
ripple effect. There's always a ripple effect when you
Mm.
demonstrate.
Mm.
And so if what's one thing from our conversation that you would want our listeners to leave with?
Oh, one thing.
Okay.
um,
Well, whatever
okay.
comes to your mind doesn't have to be one thing.
Oh, like, yeah, I think, well, look, it's no good going through your life with a mixed up sense of self. You need, it's quite fair and reasonable for you to have a belief that deep down you're a good person, you're a talented person, you've got what it takes to survive. We've come from a long line of survival of the fittest, where only the strongest have made it through. And we've got good genes that we've got from our parents, who got them from their parents, and it's carried down the line. So I think all of us who are here on the planet today, we're kind of the best of the best. You might not believe it, but it's true. We are. Everyone's got what it takes to survive and thrive and have a beautiful life. So even if you're feeling down, or life's a real struggle, you need to have faith that there's that inner side of you that has got the goods, and you've got to sift out those negative things that you've acquired, and gradually get more in touch with your true self. And that's where your direction in life comes from.
Absolutely
Well,
love that, Dr. Thompson.
right.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to share a poem that I wrote. So in reading all this and reading about you and really being
Yeah,
inspired, I wrote a poem here that inspired me. So here it goes, a short little poem.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. In finding my true identity, I had to strip away thoughts that didn't belong to me. I had to reach in and pull out my heart from the shadows and expose my truth, that my true identity is love. And in that bareness, love covered me in a warm quilt, a quilt sewn from light, flowers, and grace. In finding my true identity, labels were laid down and tucked away, masks were hung to rest, and my heart became my treasure chest. And that's it.
That's fan. Now that's fantastic.
Thank you. You're fantastic.
I wish I'd had that in the front of my book somewhere.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'll email it to you.
No, that's really, really good, and it's so in tune with what I'm talking about. And look, I've seen some of the stuff that you've done, and I know that you and I were actually on the same line. It's
Absolutely.
interesting that people have different angles. We're all trying to do the same thing,
We
and
are.
I guess there's little bits that you have or I have that might help one or two people out there to kind of change their perspectives
You
for
know,
the
I
better.
absolutely feel that 100% because one person changed, or even just an aha moment in one person, is another seed planted in someone else. And if someone else
That's
has an
right.
aha moment, most likely they'll demonstrate that aha moment, and then that becomes contagious.
Yeah.
The contagious positive disease.
Yeah,
Oh
well,
my
that's right.
goodness.
And it's not that you're trying to deny the fact that there aren't negative forces in the world
Right.
or in your own mind, but it's where you place them that's the important thing. And I think in the world, people talk about how do we get a more loving world? How do we do it? Well, the stuff that we've been talking about today, I think is how you try and do it and how you try and get those out to the side.
Mhm.
I think things are moving in an okay direction, but there's still crazy stuff going on. So we'll see how we go.
I feel that there'll always be crazy stuff going on, but if we can continue with our divine discipline and really coming, as you mentioned, heart centered
Mm.
and just being coming from that heart space as much as possible, it's going to eventually create a major ripple effect and a major change for the
Yeah,
better.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Dr. Thompson. Such a pleasure to connect with you all the way from Australia to California, and I hope we keep in touch. Wishing you and your loved ones so
Yeah,
much love and
definitely.
light. Thank you
Same
so
for
much.
you, Leno. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's an honor. Thank you.
See you then.